Hi, I'm Mitch, and welcome to the Restoration Road, where my guest today is my very good friend, Ty Bello. Ty, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Mitch. Pleasure.
You're the author, you're the keynote speaker, you're the coach. I want to get into everything, but I love your new book, 25 Sales Tips You Can Learn from Your Mother. It's new because you've added a little something at the end. I want to talk about that, but our good friend, our mutual friend, Kristen Bassant's helped you with it.
Yep.
Could you talk a little bit about Team at Work and your passion behind that and how it connects to the book?
Yeah, well, Team at Work, we've been around for about 18 years now, but it's been a long dream of ours, many years before that, and I think everything in life just kind of really led up to us starting that business, and Kristen's part of that, and so are a few other folks. We go in or come alongside of businesses where they're at today, they're here, and try to help them get to there, where they want to be. We focus a lot on leadership and customer service and also sales, and thus the book written about sales tips that we can learn from our mother.
And you end up speaking all over the country, right?
Yeah, very fortunate. I get to see a lot of different folks and really engage with them and talk about things that matter, if you will, things that really matter in their life, both personally and professionally. Try to find that balance between the two and how they can grow and mature as professionals especially in the sales area.
That's awesome. Well, I know that all of this flows from your personal story and your passion, and I'd like to get into that. Can you just talk a little bit about how you grew up and your connection with your mom?
Yeah, sure. Born and raised in a small town right above New York City called Yonkers, New York. We kind of joke, say it could have been the 6th borough, and I think they tried several times and never were successful in getting it there. But born in the 1960s, and the impact here is my mom was a single parent back in the 1960s. And truly, truly is that it takes a village to raise a child. Because I had my mom, my grandmother and grandfather, who were 60 and 62 when I was born, and her siblings and cousins. So there were 9 siblings and there were 18 cousins. I was number 18, then 19 came after me. And it was that true small family, walk to church on Sundays, go to the grocery store, the bakery, pick up the bread, pick up the pastries, all of that typical New York stuff. But in the 1960s, as a single woman raising a child, it took this village that was our family to raise me. I had cousins invest in me. I had teachers invest in me. My grandmother, my grandfather, Pop, I always called him Pop. Just I think I gave him new life in 1960 when I came on. I was like, there we were. And what a blessing I've had over my lifetime.
You had a real special relationship with him, right?
I did. When I look at, the void maybe caused there by not having a dad actively in my life, he did. I mean, at 60 years old or 65, 66, when I started playing sports, never missed a game, anything it was, would throw baseball with me, would pitch to me, whatever. Other cousins would chip in, take me to basketball games, whatever it was. So they rose to the occasion. And I never took it for granted. Still to this day, I'm in touch with many of my cousins still back on the East Coast and across the country, and never took it for granted, the investment that they made in my life.
So obviously played baseball, so I just picture all that when I think about what you've described in the picture you painted. How did you decide to enlist in the Air Force?
Yeah. So Yonkers, for what it was, an amazing town to grow up in. I just saw myself, and I share this in one of my keynote addresses, I just saw myself not progressing. I didn't feel like this was where my story was supposed to be written, the rest of it, and finished. There's this place at the top of Orchard Street and Moquette Row. It's called The Wall. Okay, and everybody I knew growing up, as you got older, you got your seat at the wall. And I was literally driving home at 16 from school, and I saw everybody out there right after school just sitting on the wall. And then at night it would transition to an older group on the wall. If that was my future and my destiny, I didn't want that. So really, didn't even talk to my mom about it. I just went down and started talking to a recruiter to find out a little bit more about the Air Force and what that would be like.
How'd you pick the Air Force of all the armed services?
I had relatives that were in the Navy, had relatives that were in the Army, didn't have anybody that was in the Marines. And it looked unique to me. It looked different to me. I didn't want to fly, I knew that, but I had a love for electronics. And I just thought aircraft, electronics, that might max. If I can get into that area, that would be great. So let's give it a shot. And after a lot of time and crying with her and my grandparents, they gave me the consent. Even though I was old enough to go in on my own, I really wanted to get their blessing, their permission, and they said, yeah, we think you're right. Now, my mom would tell you at that point she died, okay, at that point that I killed her. But we were very, very close, and even when I was stationed across the United States, back then, you know, a little bit tougher, but as she got older, called her, spoke to her every day.
So you graduated from high school and took off?
Graduated from high school, tried college, spent more time in the quad area and playing sports and stuff like that than I did in class, and realized that wasn't for me at that time. It just wasn't ready for me. And so then the Air Force was my solution. Barb would tell you he's just a gun-ho guy, and I am. I still do things that I did at basic training that I learned there. I still do them today in my life. Still to this day.
I know you're still physically fit.
I try my hardest because, well, I don't want to say as you know, but as you get older, I'm sorry, you are, no, we're about the same age. As you get older, you just gotta work at it. So I try.
Well, I keep thinking about that new body we're going to have on the other side because as time goes on, I don't want this one
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly. Yeah, then just let it all go.
So how did you meet Barb?
Funny story, in the Air Force. We enlisted about 3 days apart from each other and didn't know. Barb is from upstate New York. I'm from right above the city. So, you know, groups of people go in, and you don't really get to mingle with co-ed or anything like that during basic training. You get to see people every now and then. Well, they took us from Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas to Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi, and they put us on buses, 2 buses. So think about that back in 1980. It was a long bus ride. And you stop off at some place and they've got box lunches ready for you. You know, you're in your dress blues and the girls are in their dress blues. Well, I got on the bus where there's 48 guys and 2 girls. Okay, and there's other bus was 48 girls and 2 guys. Lucky them, right? Okay, so I chose the wrong bus. So I was a little concerned about that. Literally got off the bus after we got our snack lunch, going back into the bus, and I caught Barb at the corner of my eye.
She's one of the 2 girls?
No, she was one of the 48 on the other bus.
Oh, okay.
And I said, oh, wow, she's a pretty young lady. That was it. As it would be, we were in the same dorm area for a couple of days. We got to know each other, get acquainted, et cetera, and then over time, I think I wore her down, to be honest, because I married well above myself, above myself.
I love her personality. I love how she communicates.
Yeah, thanks.
You're blessed.
I am a blessed man.
Really blessed.
No doubt about it.
Well, how do you discover your need for Christ? Are you and Barb married when that happens?
Yeah,
Okay.
we were. Anchorage, Alaska, that's what our base was.
Oh my word.
Yeah, there we meet a guy named George Eisenberg. He's in my shop. He is a relational Christian, just relational. We built motors together. We played racquetball together. We went on hikes together. We had 3 little kids. Barb and I were, single at the time. We just fell in love with George and his wife, and his family. George was even in our wedding in Alaska. And that was it. One day he invited me to church. He invited me a lot of times, but one day in particular he invited me to church. And after Barb and I were married, I said, yes, I'll go. And I did. First time I really heard the gospel.
Had you had a church background at all as a kid growing up in Yonkers?
Yeah, I went to church on Sundays, just like most kids. Matter of fact, I even had a parochial school for 8 years, went to parochial school for 8 years, and felt like I had a good faith, but I don't believe I had a relationship.
So what happens when you hear the gospel in the church service?
Instantly just recognize the void that's in my life, the gap that's there, and say, I need that. I long for that. I starve for that. And there was a time there that I just gave my life to Christ at that moment in time, and that was it.
Did Barb do so at the same time?
Yeah, that's another whole story. Yes, she did, and felt like she was strong in her belief. And I'm growing and reading and studying and starting to teach and things like that, just really, really absorbing.
You're always all in.
Yeah, I'm trying. So yeah, but Barb, hospitality, gift of hospitality, number one, right off the bat, she's got it, gift of hospitality. And she was amazing, serving people, serving kids, adults, and everything. But come to find out, many years later, before it was the Global Leadership Summit, it was up in Chicago. It was just the Leadership Summit, right? Years ago. We're sitting there, and there was a message going over the lost coin, the lost sheep, and it's done. And Barb just gets up and said, "I've got to go outside," and she leaves. And we're with our friends and former pastor Russell and Kelly Bird. We're with them, and she goes outside, and she comes back in, and she explains to us what happened. And Russell pretty much said, "You just got saved. You just gave your life to Christ." and that was it, and transformed her.
So you end up in Indiana
Yeah.
from Alaska. Why Indiana?
The gentleman that discipled me in Alaska was a pastor, came to Fort Wayne, Indiana in 1983, and we came for a visit over Easter and fell in love with the town and just said, if we don't stay in, this might be a solution. Because again, both of us felt there was no reason to go back to New York. For the wall purposes, and upstate New York just wasn't really good and thriving back then. So we landed here by faith, 6-month-old baby, no job, and said, let's give it a shot. And that was it.
So where did your career go?
Started off at Magnavox because of my electronics and government background, and was very fortunate and blessed to be there for about 7 or 8 years. And then after that, a gentleman at church said, hey, you know what? I think you'd be good in sales because you talk really well. And I had no concept of sales. I knew what salespeople were like that I didn't like and didn't want to be, but I said, okay, interviewed, and lo and behold, got the job 28 years ago.
And then how did you know that you wanted to start coaching?
Yeah, with that same company there in sales, and grew and became a sales leader, sales manager, if you will, over several different people, and realized that I really loved coming alongside of sales reps and coaching them, even though that wasn't a word back then, but coaching them and helping them and growing their business as well. And we left the company, and we felt that we were led and called to do something different. And so at that time, coaching was just starting to come out. And I did a lot of research, and I went and got my credentials as a corporate coach, or registered corporate coach, and just couldn't figure out, how was I going to market this? How was I going to get this out there? Well, here's this talking part, right, that you're getting me to do all this time now, and you're not talking hardly at all. I called up 2 different trade shows, and I said, if you give me a shot to speak, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I think I've got a message to bring to people to encourage them, excite them, enrich them, and drive them to be better at sales. And they gave me a shot, and praise God, we walked away with 2 customers from that trade show.
Awesome. Now, where do you find time to get the Indiana Wesleyan, pursue that degree?
Yeah, that was when I was with in the sales and the medical. I just realized there was another void there. I had to get my degree. I had to finish my degree. I had to get something done. So business administration. Yeah.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Well, 28 years, right, as a
28 years.
sales professional.
Correct.
We're going on 30. You have a conversation with your mom when she's in Fort Wayne about something that's on your heart.
Yeah.
Can you describe that?
Yeah, so Mom visited us pretty regularly, and this last time that she was here, 6 months before she had passed away, I told her, you know, I really think I've got a book to write. And she said, really? I said, yeah, I think I do. And I said, and you're going to kind of be the focal point of it, but I've got tips and ideas of things that you've said to me, things that you've breathed into me over the years, and I've heard you say, and that I think are sales tips that I've learned from you. Because to me, you don't just get sales concepts and so forth out of sales books. You could read any book. You could read any book and get sales concepts out of them without question. So I said, I think I want to do that. She goes, really? She goes, get me my checkbook. So I ran over, got her checkbook, and she wrote me a check for $700. She goes, I want to invest in that book.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that was her though. That's the way she was.
Well, I love the book because I'm a sales guy too, and I just love this concept. And I want to talk about at least a few of these chapters.
Sure.
And see how they all unfolded in your life.
Sure.
Why don't we start with the one on prayer? I really
Sure.
like that. Don't forget to say your prayers.
Yeah, so probably a lot like you growing up. I know your mom, huge influence in your life as well, and your brother, right? Yep. Absolutely. You know, my mom would, you know, say goodnight and don't forget to say your prayers. You know, I think every kid heard that at one time or another. And so for me, it was, yes, I did those. I think I did those more out of routine than anything else. After realizing my faith and my relationship with Christ, I realized that getting into sales, there's a lot of faith that's there. Just like a farmer, there's a lot of faith in farming. Well, there's a lot of faith in sales. You're trying to share something with them that you think will make their business or life better, and you've got to not come across as salesy. So I have always, and I will always, pray before every sales engagement or encounter that I have. I do. Yeah. Whether it's on an elevator, an escalator, walking down a hallway, or whatever, I always pray. I pray that I've got the right message, the right ears for people to hear, that I'm able to meet their need, and it goes beyond selling my product. Because you know, you go in to sell this, They might be having the worst day in the world. Well, forget about this. That's not important. What's going on with you? Sincerely, the empathy that's there, right? That's the key. I'm a relational sales guy, whether it's a high-pitched sale or a referral sale, whatever it is. I've got to get to know you.
Yeah.
That's it.
My business was struggling, and I realized that I needed to talk to about 20 people a day who I could either sell them collector cars or sell their collector cars for them. And I was moved by the study of the Sermon on the Mount in my life, and I was prompted by the Holy Spirit that I should contact these people, not just to sell them a car, not just to sell their collection, not to help them buy a car or collection, but just to connect with them and just trust God and see if the rest would take care of itself.
Right.
And it did. Remuneration does follow relationship.
Absolutely.
People are more important than profit, just like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Zig Ziglar says you can have anything you want in life as long as you help others get as much as they want in life. And he's so right.
I was a junior in high school, and my dad made me read See You at the Top.
Awesome.
It changed my life. Yeah. I realized, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I realized the negativity that had entered my life at about 16 years old. Just never measuring up, always seeing the flaws and the negative in things. And Zig's book really changed me. Really changed me.
That's great.
My wife would say it needed to change me more, probably.
Work in progress.
That's right. How about Don't Talk to Strangers? I love that chapter, and I love that title.
Yeah. So, your mom, you're growing up, you always told, don't talk to strangers. Well, I was very fortunate, very blessed to have a guy in my life early on, sales guy, sales professional. There wasn't a time that I was with him that he wasn't reading something. Right? Whether it's a Wall Street Journal or whatever. His name was Jim, really good friend. And I got to really see Jim as a sales professional. And he never treated anybody as a stranger. He was always so well versed, not just in his products and services, but well beyond that. So that's what I always use him as my example. Are you a sales rep or are you a sales professional? And I was watching a clip this morning, actually, of a part of my keynote that I do, and I was watching that clip, and I challenge people the same way. And here's what I say: are you a sales rep or are you a sales professional? Because if you've not read an article, listened to a podcast, read a vlog, whatever, if you've not done that, then you've missed it. God created Google on the 8th day. You have no reason not to invest in yourself. So if you've not done that, you're a rep. Professionals invest in themselves. And Jim was that. Jim started me down that path and challenged me. And just watching him, he was a master at it, just a master at never knowing a stranger and talking to everybody, just everybody. So.
And you had him in your life for how long?
Oh, Jim and I were buds, along with a bunch of our other friends too, for several, probably 8 to 10 years. And our kids kind of played golf together and were together, and we were together as couples. He and his wife, and Barb and I played golf together. And then, the Lord decided it was Jim's time to go home, and Jim went home. And big void for me and many other people in his business. And matter of fact, I remember here, when we were at church, that they had the funeral there, and his boss got up and shared so much wonderful things about Jim and just about who he was, because that's who he was. It wasn't Jim the sales guy, turn the switch on, and Jim the non-sales guy, turn the switch off. It was Jim. It was just natural.
The authenticity.
Totally.
Authenticity is supposed to be the number one value in our culture, because everyone deconstructs. They peel away the layers and they want to know if you're the same all the way to the core. And so, and I guess in many ways we could say authenticity sells, but it does because it's not pushing it, it's not forcing it.
Well, like you in your sales, you didn't want them just to buy the car. It wasn't just about the car. It was about the relationship.
No.
And that's it. Long after they bought the car, did you not still want to have relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Let's talk about the chapter, Remember Who You Are and Where Your Last Name Came From.
Yeah, so that's Pop. Okay, that's 100% my Pop. 60-year-old man pretty much raising a young man like myself. At 10, he's 70 years old. And he just wants to instill some things in me that maybe he didn't even get to do in his own sons. And I get that because you're at a different phase in your life when you're 70 years old. You do things a little bit differently. And lo and behold, Pop was there to say that with me, and making sure when you walk out the door, you remember who you are and remember your last name, and remember that has a lot that gets surrounded by it. So remember what you're doing and who you're doing it with, and because it could come back and hurt you. Sales, how true, right? How true. Reputation, right? Not job hopping. Get to look at a lot of resumes these days and a lot of guys, gals bouncing around. Okay, don't understand why, let's stick with it, let's stay there longer. So there's a lot of that. And that was just Pop, just making sure you knew who you were and you were grounded in that. And then when Christ came into my life, now I'm not only grounded in my last name, I'm grounded in my heavenly name. I'm grounded in that, and that's what you have to take out with you every single day to the marketplace.
I was going to ask you that specifically. So do you think about your identity in Christ as you're praying before you go into the sales meeting?
Yeah.
That you want to remember where your last name came from, in essence?
Yeah, where my last name came from. I don't want to hurt the reputation of my last name and my boy's reputation, my family's reputation. But more importantly, I definitely don't want to offend God. I don't want Him to get a black eye because of something I've done or not done in that case. So humility, a study recently done by Harvard Business Review says humility is the #1 trait in sales reps.
Okay, so I wrote my doctoral thesis on this, and I tried to incorporate it in my first book, Restoration Road, and then Proverbs, Solomon teaches that humility is the beginning of wisdom. I had a picture, I was in an arena, and I don't know how this all came to me, but I just started thinking recently about if you're truly humble, not like fake, but if you're truly humble, the Bible talks about false humility.
Right, right.
But if you're truly humble, everybody around you wants to lift you up. And if you're truly proud, kind of everybody around you wants to put you down.
Totally.
So there is this unbelievable strength in true humility because everybody around you wants to help you. I think about when I was young and so many of the car collectors or real estate auctions I had booked, those people, they wanted to help me when I was young. I knew I needed the help. I probably was still a little too much on the proud side, but they were wanting to help me, and there's just great power in that.
Absolutely.
It's just amazing.
Absolutely.
I think it's how God's designed it. I get down and He lifts me up.
Amen.
Well, you've added something to 25 sales tips you can learn from your mother, and I'd like you to talk about those 10 additional sales coaching tips and what your thought process was there, and maybe even share one or two with us.
Yeah, sure. So over the years, I've been very privileged to not only speak, but also write for a bunch of different journals that are out there. And I write predominantly on sales and leadership, but a lot on sales. And so I went back through and kind of looked at all of the articles that I've written over the years and how they impact salespeople. And along with Kristen, we kind of searched through a number of them and figured out that these were the ones that really could help, again, that boot camp kind of mentality, transform maybe a sales rep's thinking. The one that I love the most is, I began my career in medical sales and still do a lot in medical sales and other sales as well. But medical sales years ago, it was kind of like the wine and dining. You would bring lunches into the medical community and so forth. Well, that's really gone away. Well, the bad news was back then it was kind of getting a bad rap. That was the only way you could sell was by bringing in lunch. And I would say, are we bringing content or are we bringing calories? Which one? And I always challenge the sales professional and say, you've got to look at that, whether it's content or calories. Are you going to be known for the guy that brings the great donuts and the great candy or the great lunch? Or are you going to be known for the guy that solved my pain, what's keeping me up at night, my problems? You're there to help me with other things. You can network me with other people that you know. That's what we sell. We're solution sellers, right? That's where I believe we belong as a professional. Everybody can bring in lunch. You can call up 1-800-SANDWICH and you get sandwiches delivered right away. That's not it. It might be the door to open it up, but make sure there's content behind the calories that you're delivering.
That's powerful.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun.
A lot of people watching
Yeah.
who either have a sales background, a marketing background, a business background. Maybe they take their faith so seriously that they think about evangelism and discipleship. What would you say is one of the strongest foundational ideas that you apply to every scenario?
Yeah, I always say this, I still say to this day, if you go to our website, you're not going to see a fish there. You're not. I'm about building a relationship with you, and I want you to know that I care about you, deeply care about you. And through that, if you see something different in me and you wonder what that is, I'll be more than happy to share it with you. You know, that Galatians 2:20, I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless, not I, but Christ lives in me. That's it. And it's just building the relationship, earn the right to be able to share that with them. Love them, be honest, be truthful, but earn the right.
1 Peter 3:15, in your heart set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to have an answer for anyone who asks. And
Great.
you're not letting images or anything like that in the marketplace be a barrier to get to that point.
Right.
And then you do answer with gentleness and respect.
Right. Good.
I love how you do
good.
that.
I'll look that one up. That's for sure. I know I've read it, but I don't have that written down.
You live it.
I'll
you live
write
it,
that
brother.
one down. That's awesome.
Ty, thank you so much for being with us. I love you, and
I love you,
It's
bud.
going to be so interesting to see what God does next with you and with this amazing book.
Thank you, sir, very much. Appreciate it.
You know, Proverbs 18:13 says, anyone who answers before listening is to his folly and shame. Yet how often do we do that? We do it with our spouses. We do it in the marketplace. We do it in ministry. And God's designed it. His wisdom is that we would listen first and then speak. And Proverbs 25:11 says that a word aptly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. My paraphrase, hashtag, the right word at the right time is priceless. But as you listen to Ty, you'll realize that you can never offer the right word at the right time unless you first listen. So as you go about your week, first listen, ask questions, listen, and connect at the heart level, and then pray to God on the fly, and He will give you the right word at the right time, and it will be priceless. Solomon talks about in Proverbs this idea of wise counsel, about how it's sweet from a friend, but ultimately it's to discover what the Lord's teaching you. It's success from the Lord. It is absent from the wicked. It's full of deceit if you try to get wise counsel from someone who only has their interests at heart. But wise counsel is paramount to help us make wise choices in our lives. It can lead us on career changes. It can lead us in healthy relationships. It can lead us as we set the pathway of our next steps. You can learn more about wise counsel if you get your copy of Street Smarts from Proverbs and learn how to navigate through conflict to community.